Hello, welcome to Module 3 in the course. I thought I'd start out here with a little internet humor. Hope you appreciate this. The internet is a lot like ancient Egypt. People write on walls and worship cats. So there you have it. So to continue with the course, I'm going to flip over here to this document that is our design for the student service database. In Module 3, we're going to continue talking more about tables and how they're structured and table design. We're going to talk more about primary keys, and we're going to talk about how relationships are established between tables and why that's important. And we're also going to look at some of the properties that you can set up for the fields within your tables that help with data input and data integrity in the database. So one of the required items to get done in this module, an activity to do, is to complete a document like this on your database. So by this time, we should have mostly finalized the theme for your database, and you can do this document. This, as you can see, this is based on what I did in the last module for the student service database. In that module, we had defined tables and we listed the fields within tables. In the document, what I've also done is add a few sentences on the purpose of the database. So as you can see at the top, it explains what the database is supposed to do. Why are we building this particular database? And the main purpose is to track charity service that students at high schools do for organizations. And it gives details within the tables on how we track that information. So this is one of the required documents that you need to get done for Module 3. I want to show you here, I have actually added another table to the database since the last module. I've added a table at the bottom, schools, that lists school name and phone number. And the reason I did this, I thought this database might be a database for a person that is organizing and coordinating the service for multiple schools. Here in the Chicago area, for instance, we actually have 4 Jesuit schools, and there could be a person that maybe coordinates the service for all these schools. So the students might not be at just at one particular school. So we might need to track the schools. And so that's why I've added that 5th table in there. Okay, in this lesson, the main focus of the lesson today is to talk about the field in the database called the primary key field. And I'm going to switch back here to Access. And you'll see here, this is the way we left it when we finished in the last module. I've got 4 tables. I don't have my schools table yet. So like I said, we want to build a 5th table that's going to actually track schools per our design document. So I'm going to add that table in here, and we're going to talk about primary keys. To talk about primary keys, I'm going to look at one in a table we've already built, in the students table. So if I double click that, you're going to see the data here in the table. To look at the primary key, I need to switch to design view. So as you recall, there are actually 3 different ways to do that. I can do view, go to design view, or I can right mouse click here, go to design view, or another way, just in the bottom right corner here, click on design view. So there you have it. I'm on the students table in the design view, and looking at these fields, can you tell which one is the primary key? And that is pretty easy to spot. It's the field that actually shows this key symbol right here. And if you notice, when I'm on that field, primary key up here is highlighted. When I go to the other fields, it does not highlight the primary key. And generally, you just need one field that is the primary key. And you'll recall that Access actually built that for us. So if I close out of here and do create, you'll recall when I did create table, Access automatically builds an ID field right away that is a primary key. I'm going to close this out, go back to students, design. And you're wondering, why do we need a primary key? The primary key is a unique identifier for each record. Let me say that again. A primary key field is a unique identifier for each record. So you'll notice here, each record here has a unique number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for each student. If I added another row here, say Robin Smith, you'll see it's writing a new record and it's automatically given it the number 7. I didn't type that in. So we've now got 7 students in here. So the ID field makes it unique. And another thing to notice about the ID field is down here when you look at field properties for the ID field. We're going to talk a lot more about field properties in later videos, but I want you to notice here what it's doing with new values. It says here is increment. So whenever I add a new value, it's incrementing that number. It goes from 6 to 7 to 8, whatever. And in this case, because it's a number field, it's auto number, we don't want to change that. And the number type is long integer, which we'll talk more about later. But it's incrementing the number each time. And if we go back, you might wonder, well, why do we need to have an ID field when each student's name is unique already? So I have, there's nothing duplicated about these names, but say I had an 8th person and they were also named Robin Smith. Maybe it's a large school and another person has that name. Just to avoid confusion, it's always good to have a separate ID field with a unique number like that. Okay, now what we're going to do is go ahead and create the table for schools. So I'm going to close that out, go to create, and all along we've been doing create table. I want to show something a little different here. When you're creating a new table, you have also the option to create it in something just called table design. So what it's going to do, if I click that, I'm looking at table design and it looks a little different. This looks like the design view of any of the tables we've already built, but it's allowing me to create it directly from the design view here. So I'm going to go ahead here and create our fields. So we need a school ID field. I'm going to put that in. And data type, I'm going to leave it short text, which sounds like I'm doing it wrong. You'd think, oh, I want an auto number field like I've been saying all along. But an ID field a requirement is that it has to be unique, but it does not have a requirement to be an auto number field. And I'm going to show you how that will work with our data. So school ID is going to be short text, but I do want to make it the primary key. So the way I do that is I highlighted here, I've highlighted that row, you can see with the red around it. I'm going to click here. Once I click on that, it has now made it the primary key. And something you're going to notice with the properties down here is it says no duplicates. And a primary key is always an indexed field. We'll talk about indexes later, but because it's a primary key, it also never has duplicates. So that's something to notice that happened there when we made this the primary key field. We have school ID, we're going to have school name as a short text, and we're going to have phone number as a short text. So there you have it. There's our fields. Again, you'll notice when on school ID, that is highlighted as the primary key. The other ones are not. So I'm going to save our table, call it schools. Okay. And now I'm going to add some data to the table. So let's go to Datasheet View. And I'm going to input a couple schools in the Chicago area. Again, we don't have an auto number for our primary key field, but I'm going to abbreviate. I'm going to show you how I'm going to use an abbreviation here. So like St. Ignatius College Prep here in Chicago, SICP. I'm going to make that the ID. School name is St. Ignatius College Prep. I'm going to tab over to phone number. I'm going to make up a phone number, 773, actually let's do this, 773-555-2398. And by the way, you can always expand a field to see it better. And what I did there, I just double clicked on it. I double clicked, or you can do this when you're on there and see it becomes a bar like that. You can drag it to make it larger. So I'm going to add now another row to the table. Cristo Rey Jesuit High School, CRJHS. And put in a phone number, 555-3871. And again, I can widen the field by doing that. I'm going to add a third record here. And let's say it's going to be Loyola Academy. But I maybe was a little sloppy or wasn't thinking, and I repeated it and I put in SICP. Put in Loyola Academy, 847-555-988. And when I go to move off the record, it gives me an error message right away. And it says the changes you requested to the table were not successful because they would create duplicate values in the index, primary key, or relationship. Why did it do that? Well, you look here, and school ID is supposed to be unique, and I accidentally typed in the same thing there. And it's not going to let me save it. So the database is forcing us to correct that before we can even move on. So I click OK. Let's go back and correct that and put Loyola Academy, LA. And then now it saves it. It's perfectly fine. So that's, again, the primary key is forcing it to be a unique field. So that's some information about how primary keys work.